So in Episode 2, Season 2, we open with a scene with Vera Walker, Julian's mom, with Ambrose and Novak. We learn that the couple that was murdered was Adam and Bess, and they lived on the mother's property. Vera Walker claims they looked after Julian sometimes, and that she knew about them forgetting to pack a bag, which is very mysterious. So Vera Walker has an Oregon ID. She claims to the detectives that her son's a happy child and would never do something like this. And then they drop the bomb on her and tell her that he confessed to poisoning the couple. Vera also shares in this scene, which is very important, that she lives near Osborne Road, which triggers something in Detective Novak, and Ambrose notices this right away. My man Ambrose catches it all. Nothing goes by him. So Ambrose calls out Novak about this and why she acted weird to the thought of Osborne Road, and she tells him it has a utopian community called Mosswood Grove. So already you're getting vibes at this point that Novak has some personal experience with this community, and this is making the show even spicier than it already is. Having the detective have some personal ties to this case really amps this up. So Vera gets to go to the foster home to see Julian, and she does something really sketchy here where she whispers into his ear in front of everybody, clearly telling him to change up his story to the detectives, telling him what to say, already confirming for us how much of a control freak and controlling mother she is. So Julian now is just changing his story up to the detectives, with the mom sitting there, and they know basically it's a waste of time even interviewing Julian with her there. And Vera wants to take him home, and they tell her she can't yet until she proves guardianship in court. And she's like, if you want to speak to me, you have to speak through me, you understand? So she's super nasty, and Carrie Coon is playing this role fantastically. And at this, Detective Novak snaps back at her, but Ambrose calms her down and tells her outside, it doesn't even matter what you say to her, basically. They still have the upper hand and know they can still talk to Julian without her knowing. So I like the relationship between Novak and Ambrose here, especially that Ambrose is a mentor to Novak, and she's learning from him. It makes for an interesting back and forth between the two of them. And the acting of Vera and Julian together in the scene when she's telling him, remember who you are, and Julian, the kid actor, has the tears come down on command, is spectacular. It is so rare for a kid actor to be able to pull this type of thing off. So you know this kid must have beat out a bunch of other kids auditioning for this part, and there's a reason why he got it. And Vera says an interesting line to Ambrose here outside where she's like, my son is so far behind anything you can understand. Saying he's not abused, she's not a bad mother like they're thinking, and that she didn't put him up on energy drinks and video games. So there's a lot to Julian we have to learn as well. Still. So they drop little hints here about other stuff going on with all these side characters, which is really interesting. Perfect example of this is Officer Liddell telling Ambrose when he wants to get a search warrant for the community that last time he went into Mosswood, it blew up in his face. And Ambrose is like, why was that? And the officer acts weird about it and doesn't really answer that question. So that's interesting too. There's a reason they throw lines like that in. What did this officer possibly do to this community on the other side of things? So there's a history between this police department and the community. So then at the restaurant, Novak's father mentions that Heather had a classmate that was never heard from again after joining Mosswood. But we know from the flashbacks that follow soon after that that was actually her lover. And it adds depth to this plot that Novak's hiding from Ambrose this part of the story, and that she does have personal ties to this community. It makes it super interesting because right when Ambrose gets up to take a phone call, the dad says to Heather, I don't like this Mosswood stuff. I don't like it opening old wounds. So this is very, very juicy. Season 2, man, this writing has just been top notch. I am so impressed how layered this all is and how fast paced. Every little character is interesting here. So then right away we see Novak goes to Mosswood in current time just to like spy on the area. And then we get flashbacks with her former lover, played by the lovely actress of Hannah Gross. You might recognize her from Mindhunter on Netflix. They both found the commune at a time together, and her lover mentions they hypnotized people at this commune, supposedly, makes a joke of it, which is another big hint. And the interesting thing here was Novak was the one to suggest for them to sneak down there into the commune. I'm sure she regrets that every single day, but it wasn't the lover pushing them down there. Very interesting. So Detective Ambrose takes advantage of this window to meet with Julian one-on-one before chance of the mom getting full custody of him again. And Julian's like, outsiders are all the same. And Ambrose is like, what's an outsider? And he's like, an outsider is someone who promises you things before you even know them. And Ambrose is like, is that something your mother told you? And he's like, my mother can read minds. And that she told me all about you. And then our man, Detective Ambrose, Bill Pullman, comes back with the zing. And he goes, well, did she tell you to change your story? Boom. This was a nice scene, this little interrogation. It's right to the point. That's what I love about The Sinner. They're just ramping this up. So we get a little scene with Julian having a nightmare with something that looks like a Dementor from Harry Potter, and it always grabs his belly button area. Anyone have any theories on why this is? Why is this in his nightmares? Why is Julian thinking about that specifically? So we also learn now that Vera Walker has no criminal record, no credit card, she's basically a ghost. And at court, she has the birth certificate, but no proof of residency for Julian. And no documentation for the homeschooling, so very, very sketchy. And Vera's like, my son is terrified, he wants to come home. And then I love this judge, she's like, I have more confidence in foster care than you right now. Come back when you're prepared. Judge crushed it. I love that judge, I can't wait to see more of her. I hope she gets more screen time. But it's a big loss for Vera. And Ambrose sees this. He's there at the court, so he knows he's got more time. So we go back to this flashback at the commune, and Novak's former lover becomes enamored with this Jesus-like guy who greets them and tells him to come to the fire. He reminds me of Justin Theroux in Wanderlust, if anyone's seen that great hysterical movie. If not, check it out. But if you have, come on, it's exactly a spitting image of this dude. And then we cut to another really interesting flashback with, we see Ambrose as a kid for the first time, and he walks into a boiling pot in the kitchen, and the mom isn't around in the kitchen. Might be hinting at how this fire in the house started. Maybe it was a kitchen fire. And it's a really effective flashback here because it works well with them showing it and him thinking about it while he's evaluating a kid in a similar situation, comparing his own traumatic experiences he had with his mother to what this kid might be going through with his mom. So this is some of the best writing I've ever seen this show pull off. So then Ambrose asks the kid to start asking him questions. The kid's like, why are you here? And he's like, because it matters to me what happens to you. So Ambrose, he's a good guy, and he's always, again, looking for the good in the claimed bad. And Ambrose shares his mother couldn't take care of him, and that there was an accident. And it's really interesting, he's learned the mom is still alive. Last episode, I thought she died in this fire. And he left Keller to get away from his mom. And he also went to a foster home like Julian. So Ambrose is brilliantly trying to get Julian to connect with him through sharing his similar experiences and to trust him and get him out of his mother's brainwashing, which is going to be his biggest task. And then they both connect over nightmares. What a scene this was. Arguably might be the best scene out of any Sinner episodes, including season 1 yet. And Ambrose connects these nightmares that Julian's having to trauma and physical or mental abuse, or even both. So then we learn about Danny Spaulding, who the car the night of the murder that the couple was driving was registered to. We learned that he's an ex-con and on the sex offender list. So they're adding another player here that's super important we'll get to in a second. But this crazy mom calls Ambrose in the middle of the night, basically watches Ambrose and tells him, I saw you talk to my son twice. And she's like, if you come to this commune, you're not going to find anything here. And tells him he's wrong. And she's like, trust me, I know where the monster is. What could that mean? It's adding a nice mystery. And a nice little throw to Sinner season 1. We call in this scene when Ambrose is on the phone with Vera. The painting above him is a picture of a moth that is super similar to the moth we saw in the opening credits of season 1. Nice touch. So Ambrose and Novak already are going to this commune in Mosswood. Again, love how quick this pace is going. And it already starts triggering Novak to having these flashbacks even being there. She's getting uncomfortable. And we learn that Novak in these flashes is a super jealous type, and she's jealous that her girl keeps staring at this Jesus guy. And we also learn what they were doing around that fire was throwing things into the fire that symbolize stuff that is holding them back. And the lover throws in her mother's necklace. So clearly mommy issues. And in a flash later on, continuing this story, we learn the lover's name is Morin, and she explains to the Jesus guy her mom's annoyed by her existence. And the Jesus guy's like, there's someone I want you to meet. And he brings her to the shed, shows the flash of her walking into the shed that we saw earlier in the episode. And this is clearly the last moment Novak ever saw of her before she went missing. So when they first get to Vera Walker in the community, we see she's sitting with a bunch of residents on the floor. This whole thing reminds me of that Netflix documentary, Wild Wild Country. Similar story about a cult. You should check that out if you like that kind of thing. And another little important line you gotta catch is Novak says, is this everybody? So she's still looking for her girls, asking that question. And then it's odd they have a little memorial for Bess who died, but not Adam. Did they not like Adam? Then they go to Julian's room, and creepily he shares his room with his mother, and she explains there's no private bedrooms, and that Julian's the only child on property. And Ambrose asks, where is his father? And Vera's like, he's not in the picture. That's going to be a big thing later on. So knowing more about Julian's father is going to be a big piece of this puzzle. And we learn Danny Spaulding, the sex offender and ex-con, is still living there. And Ambrose calls her out for not caring about this man living with her son, a minor. And she says that she believes everyone gets a second chance, and says that Danny has completely transformed himself for the work. We prefer to help a guy like him, and society casts him aside. It's an interesting debate what they're actually debating in this scene, it makes you think, like, wait, is this something she's actually right about? Or is she nuts? That's a tough debate and tough topic if you were in her shoes as a mother, and how you handle people like former sex offenders if they want to change. So, nice little political discussion they throw in there. And maybe it shows this commune isn't as crazy as we might think on the surface. And then we get to see how all these beds in the commune are right near each other, and where exactly the couple Adam and Bess slept, and it was separate beds near each other. And now it makes complete sense why they got 2 separate beds in the motel the episode before. Nice hint, Sinner. That is a deep hint, and brilliantly thought out for them to get separate beds in the motel room. Then Novak recognizes the gray-haired ponytail man from the motel counter, and as that is happening, Ambrose notices the necklace a woman is wearing is similar to the one Bess wore. So this is great detective work on Novak and Ambrose. And he has a great line where he's like, "You're not stealing from the dead, are you?" And she's like, "No, she gave it to me." And he goes, "When would that have been?" And she's like, "Before she left." And he's like, "Why would she give you a special gift if she was going for only for a couple of days? They weren't coming back, were they?" Boom. Our man again, Bill Pullman, kicking butt and taking names. He's even a better detective than last season. So Novak believes that Vera had to know something about this whole murder before she came into the station that day from the ponytailed man. And Ambrose and Novak, from all this information, agree that that Niagara Falls story is a complete hoax. There's some really good lines here when Ambrose is like, "What do you mean by the work?" to Vera. And she's like, "We all have a shadow. The good and bad we try to hide. We shine a light on that shadow. And that it's not for the faint of heart. And that it's rewarding, powerful, and teaches you to trust yourself." So this is very cultish talk, and Carrie Coon is crushing it as Vera Walker, portraying this part, keeping her hard to read and mysterious. And then Novak goes back to that shed, doesn't tell anyone she's going there, and then we see her step up, which I'm assuming that big rock statue she sees in the shed is on a stage, and there must be some kind of ceremony there. And she goes to touch it, and there's like a weird whistling sound in the background. And then it ends. So the pace of the season is moving fast. It's building up great mysteries and layers. And at the same time, it's also not forgetting to drop in character building. What I'm loving about this season compared to season 1 is they're really making all these characters deep. Ambrose and Novak are both getting flashbacks and complications, making these stronger characters. And we got a great mysterious villain in Vera Walker and an amazing child actor in Julian. If it's this fast and crazy now in episode 2, how nuts is the last couple episodes going to be? I'm super pumped for this season right now. I'm going to say this. Arguably, these first 2 episodes of season 2 were definitely better than the first 2 episodes of season 1. I'm going to say I agree with that statement. Let me know if you agree with that. I'm interested what you guys think about it. And this season as a whole, no matter what you think of it, has been so impressive because there's a lot of pressure it has to live up to of season 1. And it's not based off a book now. So the writers had a lot of going from scratch here, and they're nailing it. I'm going to give this episode a 9.3. Really, really enjoyed it. I can't wait for more. Let me know down below what you thought of it. I respond to as many comments as I can. I read every single one. Let's get the discussion going. Please subscribe. My review of The Sinner gets posted right after each episode airs, so you don't want to miss one. I review a bunch of TV shows right now. Better Call Saul. I have reviews of Sharp Objects, Handmaid's Tale, and more to come as well, so you don't want to miss any of those. Follow me at SteveVarley1 on Twitter and Instagram for more, and I'll see you next time.